What's going on, everyone? A Fearless Football Forecast here with episode 10, and it is the first week of the NFL season. So the first time that you guys are going to get our new format. We're going to be talking everything from NFL news, giving our game predictions, giving our bets, as well as giving some fantasy advice. So we have a shit ton of stuff planned for you guys today. It's going to be a hell of a ride. Make sure to get that seatbelt on, strap in, and also subscribe, like this video, and share. There is so much to talk about. I'm so excited. I don't know about you. It still feels like a dream that football's back. And until kickoff on Thursday, it's not going to hit me fully.
I agree. Until I see that ball flying through the air, I mean, I'm obviously very excited. We talked about that when we first saw each other, but oh my God, all I can think of is Thursday night.
And since we're actually going to break down every single game, including all the primetime games, we're going to get right into our news here. The first news story comes from Indianapolis.
Yeah, so we mentioned it on our last podcast. We mentioned that we were recording a little bit early. We weren't sure what was going to happen. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor is still an Indianapolis Colt, and he's still on the PUP. So basically what this means is he's going to miss the first 4 weeks no matter what. No team would trade for him right now because they can't use him. But if a team did reach out and say, all right, we'll just trade you for him now, he would still have to miss those 4 weeks. It doesn't matter that he's moving rosters. And he has to miss at least 4 games. It's not 4 games and he's good. They can keep him on there longer than that if they choose to. So it's just a real messy situation. It's so hard to tell. Obviously, there were indications that his ankle still hurts. You know, he's going to say it's not. Like, nobody really knows what's going on. It's one of those things where I have him in a dynasty league, and I'm a competitive dynasty league, a win now league, or win now team, and it's just such a bummer because if he's on the field and he's healthy, he's going to be a stud. But now I'm not even convinced he's 100% healthy.
He's not healthy, and he doesn't want to be there, and their relations are a little bit severed. And at the end of the day, even though the initial trade deadline that they had set for him happened, I'm starting to think more and more now that the Dolphins might actually end up still getting him later on in the season once those trade talks open up. Another player that's injured that we haven't really talked about at all, like in any podcast so far, is Cooper Kupp. So right now it's looking like he's probably not going to be there for week 1 or 2. But the extent of his injuries, like he's going to some weird specialist now to check up on it. My main takeaway as far as fantasy goes, as far as gambling goes, and as far as the Rams go, is that Van Jefferson is a good pickup and he will actually take a significant load this week. I really actually like him this week against Seattle. But it's such a shame to see Cooper Kupp deal with this so close to the season.
Yeah, it's one of those things where obviously earlier in the preseason it came out that he hurt that hamstring injury. It was like a month ago or like 3 weeks ago at this point. They're like, oh, we're just going to bench him until he's fine. He comes back to practice. Obviously, in the back of your mind, you know that there's a chance of re-injury, but now he re-injures it before he even gets onto a real game playing field, and it's one of those things that's really upsetting. Kupp, I love this year. I think, pretty much everybody does, but I think that he had an opportunity to soak in so many targets that he could have another wide receiver 1 season for fantasy. For me, I know fantasy drafts, you really only got, 1.5 days to do them unless you're in a weird league that'll draft it the Thursday after. But I don't think that I would touch him, quite honestly. Definitely not in the first round. If he slipped to me in the second round, that's when I would start thinking about it. But it's one of those things where I don't want to have a player on my fantasy team with that much draft capital used to where he's already been injured twice. You know what I mean? So
especially when we're still waiting on the news from the specialists too.
Yeah, they don't even know how bad it is. So
because he could
God
come out
only
and
knows.
say weeks, like 4 or 6 weeks. You never know.
So it's just a sad situation.
And then the next bunch of news, one has to do with a news story that we've been following all year long with Chris Jones and still not signing with the Kansas City Chiefs. But it also looks like the Chiefs might be without their star tight end in the season opener. It's such a shame, especially because we're amped for the season. Everyone's putting in their bets on Kelsey, touchdown. Everyone's excited. I can't imagine being someone who just drafted in fantasy last night and got Kelsey, and you're excited to watch him play week 1. You mainly took him because you wanted some players in the first game, and now you see that he might miss. The extent of the injury so far isn't really clarified. They did confirm, though, that he didn't tear his ACL, so they said it's still intact. He did hyperextend his knee, and it's just such a shame because you want to see, like, football, a Mahomes to Kelsey touchdown. It would be like the perfect football is back moment. And hopefully we still get that. But I know you're more on the side that he's not going to play. I'm thinking he might play just a little bit in the red zone, but we'll see.
So now that you mentioned that, that's not a bad idea. My thing is, they're the opening game. Why risk it? I don't, like you said, they came out, they said that the ACL is fine. You never know with all the other stuff. They're going to see how the swelling looks, over the next day and a half. But I just think, why risk it? He's the most, as of right now, a teammate we're about to talk about is holding out. So he's the second most important player on this football team. So there's a chance that they're missing their second and third most influential football players on the field, which is insane. But, you're going up against the Lions, who we've said we think, well, we'll get into the game breakdown in a couple minutes, but it is an NFC opponent, so it's not a divisional matchup. It's not going to come into playoff rankings. Like, it's not a loss in the AFC. I think that they're going to play it safe, play the long game, and give him that rest, because if he rests this week, he has an extra week and a half to rest it up and then get back to it.
The fact that the game's on a Thursday is definitely more of a lean to why you would rest him. And you were saying Kelsey touchdown, hammer, but now we're going to bring you our bets. These are our 2 touchdown scorers that we are guaranteeing are going to score this week. We wanted to make sure these are going to change every week. This is going to be the first segment to start the show after the news, because we know a lot of you out there are betting, but also from a fantasy perspective, you can take notes on this to make sure to start them. This week we have 2 kind of surefire picks. Maybe sometimes we'll have ones where it's like 5-1 odds, even 12-1 odds, knowing us. But this week, since it's week 1, we're kind of keeping it a little bit safe. My guy is Cam Akers. Right now he's sitting at plus 120, which I think is ridiculous to score, especially with the news that Cooper Kupp is out. This Rams team really has lost their identity as far as Matt Stafford goes. But if you look back at the last 5 weeks of the season last year, Cam Akers was a top 3 fantasy running back. If he can repeat that, it would be now. Usually those type of things might not last all season, but if you look, they usually translate to week 1. The Seahawks run defense is also abysmal, which is why we're seeing a lot of reports come out that they're looking for a possible trade for Jones. But that defense was so bad, they couldn't even stop the second and third string preseason running backs throughout preseason. They looked abysmal. And Cam Akers is really talented. I like Cam Akers' first touchdown. I like Cam Akers' actual touchdown. I might even talk about him later when we do our fantasy starts of the week. But I am all over Cam Akers this week. I've even traded for him in some leagues just to make sure I win my first matchup. I think he's almost a lock to score a touchdown. And I wouldn't be shocked if that line goes to minus 130 by the end of the week.
And the guy I'm going to talk about is J.K. Dobbins. His line sitting right now on DraftKings is at plus 105. I just wanted to go with this one because, like you said, depending on the odds, we might go with longer shots. But I think the fact that you're getting plus money on somebody who I'm feeling pretty confident that they're going to be able to find a way into the end zone. The Texans, I think that I still think they're one of the worst teams in the league. I think they did take a slight step forward on defense, getting an elite prospect that's supposed to be an elite edge rusher. I think that the pieces that make their defense, so like the parts that you like, Petrie, Stingley, and Anderson, the young talent, they're all more beneficial to the passing game. And I just see the Ravens, they're going to go up. It's going to be, I think actually the Texans could keep it close in the first half, but by the end of the game, it's a runaway. And I just think that the Ravens are going to be like, let's just run this clock down. We don't need to do anything crazy week 1. I think that they're going to show the flashes, but I think that Dobbins is going to get so many opportunities in the red zone to punch one in I'm feeling pretty confident. Like I said, getting plus money on that was kind of a surprise to me when I looked it up.
I like Dobbins as well this week, and I think out of all teams that you can be confident in and covering the spread this week, it is the Ravens. I mean, you're really only giving the Texans not like 7 points. And the Ravens are another team that, like, for my touchdown scorer parlay, that's when I want to put some juice on, tap in Lamar, Andrews, OBJ, and Dobbins. Now I just thought of that off the top of my head. I'm going to have to place it because I'll hate myself if it hits, and I didn't. But there you go. There's a little free touchdown score parlay for you. And up next, we're going to continue the betting train, and this is also going to be our first official prediction. And I apologize if I'm explaining these segments, but this is the first time that we've done it. So I just want you guys to know what you're expecting every single week. This is a team that we have both been very high on if you've been watching us since day one. And, they're a home dog. You got to love home dogs, and they're playing a quarterback who, yes, he is a top 3 quarterback in the league, but he may still be dealing with some injury issues, and that is the Cleveland Browns. Right now they are sitting at plus 120.
Yeah, so this is one of those ones where I actually liked them before the Burrow news. It was one of those like look ahead lines when they officially came out, and we were all like, "Oh God, you're scratching just to see what all the sportsbook think of Week 1 matchups." But like you said, at home, going up against Joe Burrow, who even if he's not feeling anything, he hasn't really done anything. No real practice reps. It's going to be his first time actually getting to play. I think you could see him a little slow to start the year. You saw it last year against the Steelers, who have a great defense. I've said multiple times, I think that the Browns defense is actually going to show their potential, or not show their potential, but actually live up to their potential this season, I should say. But last year against the Steelers, Burrow threw 5 picks. I don't think he's going to throw 5 picks against the Browns, but I could see him certainly struggling in this game. The pass rush, they have 2 great pass rushers, and I think that the Browns are going to come out, make a statement, and say, "Hey, I know the NFC North or AFC North is competitive, and we're going to be here for the fight all season long."
Yeah, we're both big on this team. They just have really upgraded their defensive line. And I don't think the league is ready for the comeback of Deshaun Watson because he was a top 5, you could argue top 3 quarterback when he actually was healthy and he was playing. That early quarterback play combined with the fact that Nick Chubb is one of the best running backs in the league, I think is really just going to get the Browns off to a hot start. And the way that their defense is designed, it is really strong front to back. And if they do go up, they're not going to blow that lead. And that's something that I'm pretty confident in. And that could stun the Bengals. Week 1 last year, even the Bengals came out a little cold, and that was right off of their Super Bowl run. This time, we're just seeing right now that it could happen again against another divisional opponent. It's too good of a line. There's another game that we're close to picking, and we'll probably discuss that later. But as far as if you're giving me $1,000 to bet on one of these underdogs this week, the Browns would be the team that I'm taking. And like you said, we were both kind of on them before the Burrow injury, and now we still are. So give us the Browns. Now, at this point in the next week, we're going to be doing the waivers before we actually get into all of our picks for fantasy. But right now, we're going to head into the Week 1 predictions. First up, we got the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Lions. And I got a big smile on my face because this game is literally 2 days from now. I can't wait. I have a bet already placed. It's a teaser. So I have the Lions plus 10. I don't like spreads unless you give at least a touchdown. I hate the plus 6. If you're going to do that bet, just change it. Just make it plus 7 just in case. Give yourself the extra point as well. But overall, I do still think despite the Kelsey injury, despite Jones not being there, I'm still going to think that Patrick Mahomes at home in Arrowhead pulls through. Andy Reid is one of the best coaches in the league as far as Week 1s. The Chiefs always come out and stomp teams in Week 1. I mentioned it earlier when talking about Pacheco. I think he's going to have a great game. I think this defense, the Lions not having Jamison Williams really contains their secondary. So they really only have to worry about everything that's happening within 30 yards. There's nothing that's going to scare them except maybe a Marvin Jones touchdown that's anything deep. And if you're going to keep it simple, I think that that's something that any defense can do, especially when they're coached well.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you here. I see Kansas City pulling out a W, even if Kelsey doesn't play. Obviously, they're not going to have Jones no matter what. Kelsey's still up in the air. But I just, like you said, the biggest thing that you said, and it's exactly what I was going to say, is that Andy Reid always has an insanely good game plan for week one. And the Lions aren't the type of defense that I think can live up to that type of game plan. I think that Mahomes is going to be locked in. Reed's game plan is going to be locked in, and they're going to drop a 40 burger on them. And I think that the Lions are going to be able to be competitive and like score with them. But I just don't think that their defense, this will be one of those games where someone needs to get a stop. And I think that the Kansas City Chiefs will be the ones who prove to pull that out and actually can get a stop at some point in this game.
And up next, this is the game that I was talking about earlier when I said we were very close to picking our dog of the week. Both of us, I don't know about you, but I'm still sticking with the dog here in this matchup. I have the Pittsburgh Steelers beating the San Francisco 49ers. Another scenario where, like we mentioned, Andy Reid giving Tomlin the opportunity to end up, in their week one here, getting 2.5 points. Like I said, I would add one to that. If you're going to bet the spread, make sure it's plus 3.5. I could see the Niners winning on a late field goal. But as far as the money line goes, I'm still going to take the Steelers, who right now are sitting at plus 120. The Niners are without George Kittle, most likely. And Brock Purdy, we really haven't seen what a full offseason of prep from a defense does against Brock Purdy. As efficient as he was, part of that could be the lack of tape, being such a late round pick. There wasn't much tape of him playing more competitive teams in college. So we'll see. Like I said, I wouldn't be surprised. That's why we didn't make it our official dog of the week, but I'm still going with the Steelers. I think Kenny Pickett, this is my number one factor, is that Pickett has been playing every single week in the preseason, and he's been playing well. So for him, this isn't going to feel like a week one game. It's just going to feel like he's already in the motions.
Yeah, and I agree. I'm still on the Steelers in this game as well. From the Steelers' perspective of things, obviously they're going to be well coached. They're going to be ready to play. The offense has been playing every preseason game. They look in sync. I think they're going to be high confidence. That Steelers defense, their pass rush, TJ Watt, amazing. And like you said, the 49ers, Purdy, it's his first game. He just started throwing like 3 weeks ago. And teams have had a full offseason to get a look at him. I just don't know if he's going to be 100% to his full capabilities. And I think that the Steelers are one of those teams where Brock Purdy is going to be having to play at his top level output, where the Steelers are going to pull away a victory. So I agree. I think that the Steelers take care of business at home on this one.
So we're 2 for 2 on our picks so far as being similar. I don't see that changing up next with the Texans at the Ravens. Not much explanation to do. I'll talk about some players. You'll talk about some players later when we talk about our starts of the week here. I kind of like what you said about how the Texans might be able to take it close. It's a new offense for the Ravens, for Lamar Jackson. But that being said, it is a new offense for the Ravens. And I expect a really, really big game for Odell, for Zay Flowers, for Rashad Bateman, for everyone on the Ravens, especially in that second half. I can see some fireworks happening in that second half. And I have the Ravens not only winning, but covering the 10.
Yeah, so this is one of those things, as I said, if you're one of those people who bet the spread, I wouldn't touch the spread in this game. I do expect, as I said earlier, I really do think the Texans are going to be able to keep it close in that first half. And then I think that the Ravens are just going to pull away in the second half. The Ravens are just such a better team, even with Humphrey out. I think their defense is good enough to create problems for a rookie quarterback. And, I think that Lamar is going to be as healthy as he is all year. He's going to be ready to prove to people that he's worth that contract. I just think that the offense is going to be really in sync. And I do think by the end of the game, they're going to win by 10 to 14 points. And I think it's going to be one of those games where you look at the score and it's not as much of a blowout as it was. You know what I mean? Like, I think they win by 14, but the entire game, it's a touchdown game. But as I said, straight up winner. I think that the Ravens are going to take care of business against a rookie quarterback in his first performance.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see Roquan Smith in his second year with the Ravens as well. Let's see what happens here with this next one. I wrote the wrong team, but it is the Cardinals at the Commanders here. It looks like Josh Dobbs or Clayton Tune are going to start at quarterback against one of the best D lines and entire front sevens in the NFL. So I'm just going to go with the Commanders here. But this isn't one where like I'm running to the bank to bet. You know, we have a friend who loves calling things locks, and I will never pick a bad team despite the matchup as a lock. And at the end of the day, I don't think the Commanders are that great of a team. I'm glad that Bieniemy's there, and I do believe in Sam Howell. But if at the end of the day you told me this is a 10-7 Cardinals win in a just battle where both teams couldn't complete any passes to make the field different, I wouldn't be surprised, but my official prediction is still going to be the Commanders.
On this one, I think that the defensive line alone is going to win the game for the Commanders. So if nobody else shows up except for the Commanders' defensive line, I think that the Commanders still win this game. The Cardinals are putrid. I think that the only way they find a way to win a game is in like a spot matchup where a quarterback's got a gimpy leg or something like that. I really do, because they're horrible. They're trading away some of their, they haven't proven to be great, but some of their better players, which isn't saying much on a team that bad. Like I said, I think the D line is going to have its way with the Cardinals' offensive line. I'm excited to see how the rookie cornerback for the Commanders plays. He should have an easy day with both whatever quarterback they end up starting being terrible. And I actually am in on Hal, and especially against a defense like the Cardinals, I think that he's going to have a pretty good day. Again, I'm not the biggest spread guy, but if I did have to pick, I would say that they cover the spread. I think they're going to win this game pretty comfortably.
All right. So we're together on the pick, maybe not the spread. Up next, this is a game that we haven't really discussed at all, so I'm excited to bring it up now. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking on the Minnesota Vikings. Now, both of us are pretty down on the Vikings. However, I still have the Vikings winning this matchup. I feel like this is going to be the game where everything's clicking before shit hits the fan, basically. Justin Jefferson, week one every year is always fantastic. I expect that to continue, especially against a beat-up Buccaneers secondary. I just don't think that – like, this is the perfect matchup for the Vikings because their defense is slacking so much. But can Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask actually do something against a college defense, let alone one of the worst defenses in the NFL? And I don't think that they're going to need to worry about the Bucs putting up more than 17 here. I expect the Vikings to win. I expect them to cover. Actually, one of the games where I think the line is being a little too generous to the Bucs.
Yeah, so before we started recording, I said that there was a game that I surprised myself on, and it's this one. So when I went through and we did every game, we picked every game, not once did I have the Buccaneers beating the Vikings, but when I was looking at it, rechecking the lines to see if there was any movement, I just have a feeling that the Buccaneers are going to show up week one. Like you said, I'm not very big on the Vikings this year. I think their defense is going to be putrid again, just like last year. And I think that while Baker probably won't have a great year, I think that, them coming out with a focused game plan, they've been looking ahead to this game for, training camp purposes. I think that Baker is going to be as dialed in as he is. I think he's going to say, listen, this is my last chance. So I think that the early season Baker is going to be the best of Baker until he starts getting into some better matchups on defense. I think that the Vikings will be able to score, but I also think that the Buccaneers defense, while I think by the end of the year, it's not going to be one of the better ones. They might end up trading players when they're a bad record. I think right now, week one, I think they'll be able to make a play or two here or there, maybe hold them to 2 extra field goals than the Vikings defense can with the Bucs. And I'm going to go with the upset here on this one.
Oh, wow. All right. So I guess we're both going to have
surprising myself.
I think we're both going to have plus 200 upsets at some point during the show. Up next, we got the Jacksonville Jaguars versus the Indianapolis Colts. If you checked out the video yesterday that I posted about my best bets, you know the answer for this one. It's the Jaguars. Jaguars, easiest cover of the week as well in terms of the spread. They're winning this game by 15 points. Anthony Richardson, I love him to death, but is a raw talent against a pretty solid defense in his first NFL game. He's going to be trailing the whole game. As I think the gap's going to just simply widen. That another game very similar to the Texans game, where I wouldn't be surprised if it's somewhat close in the first and second. And then let's say the Jags score first in the second half. Richardson's just going to feel that panic come on and start throwing picks, start fumbling. I wouldn't be shocked if Richardson has 3, 4, 5 turnovers in this game. I don't expect it to be pretty at all because have you ever played Madden, when you're down 30 points and all you're doing is hucking up bombs and then throwing picks? That is exactly how I see this game happening. I do not see a chance in hell that the Jags don't win and Trevor Lawrence's MVP campaign begins. Also, for wide receivers, the Colts were the 31st worst. So I expect Calvin Ridley to eat. I expect Christian Kirk to eat. I expect Trevor Lawrence to be airing it out all day. And I do not expect this one to be at all close.
Yeah, so I think this game is going to be close. I think I said that to you last week. I still feel the same way. I do think the Jaguars are going to end up winning it. I think that Richardson is going to have a good game, especially on the curve that he's a rookie and it's his first game ever. But I think that in a critical moment, he's going to overthrow somebody or make a bad decision and throw a pick, something like that. And I just don't think that they're going to pull it off, especially without Jonathan Taylor. But I do think this is going to be one of those games that's going to be close all throughout the game. This is one of those games I'm really excited to watch just because I'm so excited to see Anthony Richardson in a real football game. I know we saw him in the preseason, but I think it'll be closer than you do. But I also think the Jaguars are going to pull away with this one.
And this next matchup is one that is really fishy to me, that I would say, even if you were given a free bet, to not place anything on. And that's coming from me, who is the biggest Derek Carr, biggest Saints believer for this year. But there's just something weird about it. You know what I mean? It's Carr's first official game. I think that this is either going to go one of two ways. They're either going to completely blow them out, or it's going to be a tight contest that Tennessee defense ends up prevailing in. But my official prediction is going to be the Saints. There's not much I can talk about this game. I do expect a big matchup for Chris Olave against the Titans secondary. But other than that, this is a game that I really think is a coin flip. Like, out of all games and all picks this week, dog or favorite, I think this is the one that I'm by far the least confident in.
So I think that I feel exactly what you're saying. I'm a little bit more confident than you are on the simple fact that I'm just not a big fan of the Titans this year. Obviously, if you want to check out our last pod where we went over our complete predictions, I have them winning like 3 games. I think they're going to be horrible this year. Their offensive line is god awful. They have D-Hop, but and their defense is good. But I think that this is one of those games and one of those teams with the Saints where if Derek Carr is struggling early, they'll just lean on the run game and the screen game, the play, like all the short stuff, and just milk the clock. And like my thing is, I think that the Titans are going to be their offense is going to be bad to the point where, like, I think the Saints with their defense could score 17 points and win the game. So I feel more. I do see why it's a trap game. Derek Carr, you're never 100%. You can't really be 100% confident in Derek Carr, even though he's a good quarterback. He's not one of those guys that you can just stamp it on. But I just think that the Titans are going to be terrible this year, and I think that the Saints are going to handle this one pretty comfortably.
Yeah, the Titans and the Packers are the two teams that we are the most split on this year, because I still think that the Titans are solid. I still think that they're at worst, the 8-win team, just because of the coaching and the hardcore football that they play. Obviously, we already mentioned Bengals Browns, both of us going with Browns. And then the final game of the 1 p.m. slate, another team that we're excited to see, we have the Atlanta Falcons taking on the Carolina Panthers. And I'm all on the Falcons this week. I really think that with their run game, it's just going to be too much. Even if Desmond Ritter's not able to really take that next step, I think the Ritter from last year can show up and they can still win this game against the Panthers. Just utilizing Bijan Robinson. This is a game where they added Calais Campbell, they added Jesse Bates, they added multiple pieces. They drafted well. This Falcons team, I like moving forward. I know you like them moving forward. And I think that this is the game where, like, as far as a DST team to play this week that's really undervalued, I think it's the Falcons because similar to what I said with Anthony Richardson, I don't think it'll be as bad, but I do see Bryce Young struggling a little bit, especially because he didn't really get much work in the preseason, especially when you have a ball hawk out there like Jesse Bates. I wouldn't be shocked if there's a pick with that connection right there. I don't expect this one to be a high-scoring game. I wouldn't be shocked if it's Falcons 17, Panthers 13. That's probably what my official prediction would be on this game, but I am going to go with the Falcons.
Yeah, again, this is another one we agree on. I'm a little bit higher on the Falcons than you are, and even so, you like them, obviously. But yeah, I think that this game, I like Bryce Young. I think we're all scared about his size. They just don't have any weapons this year. I don't think that their offense is going to be all that good. I think that the Falcons' defense is not going to be great, but when there's really no one to have to worry about, weapons-wise, that they're going to be able to contain this Panthers offense extremely well. And I like the Panthers defense, like I said multiple times before. I think they're going to keep it close. As you said, this is definitely going to be within a touchdown game. If I had to guess, I'd say 24-17 would be my official guess. I think that the defense is going to keep it competitive, especially early on. I think that the Falcons are going to end up kind of taking control of the game towards the end of the game when the defense is just gassed because they're on the field so much.
Yeah, I mean, once again, we're pretty much together so far. It seems like even if our opinions differ a little bit, we're together on the pick. So far, the only one that we have different is Vikings at Bucks, which is pretty impressive for putting two different minds together for the 1 p.m. slate. Let's see if that changes at the 4 p.m. slate. First game we're going to talk about is the Philadelphia Eagles, the former Super Bowl team, taking on the New England Patriots at home. I think the Eagles win this one. I think they win it comfortably. But the thing that concerns me is the Vegas line. I don't understand why the Eagles are only minus 185 against the Patriots team that has a horrific quarterback that has shown that they really don't have their stuff together, that wasn't that great last season and took a lot of key losses in players this season. As you know, from what I said earlier in our best bets video and the podcast, I said I don't think that the Patriots are even going to win 5 games this year. So to have them be like pretty close of a line, I mean, they're plus 164 against the Eagles. That really concerns me. Like, I'm wondering if the Eagles are in a trap line situation. Not saying that Vegas controls the NFL by any means, but why the hell are the Eagles not minus 5,000, minus 500? The Eagles, in my opinion, should have the same line that the Ravens do against the Texans. I mean, you're an Eagles fan, so I guess you could elaborate on it more, but I really don't understand what's going on with that line.
Yeah, I think you're just really getting, and this is my assumption, I think you're really just getting the Bill Belichick respect from the books, quite honestly. When I first saw the lines came out, and, right now we're floating around on DraftKings, they're minus 198. And I feel extremely confident about the Eagles. I try my best to take my Eagles biased out of things, and I think I am, quite honestly. I don't think the Patriots are going to be all that good this year. They just don't really have any great weapons. Their best weapon's knee is apparently about to explode at any moment. You saw that, right? Juju's knee could. A report came out that his knee could explode at any moment.
Oh God.
And he's bad enough with his knee, so if that thing explodes, he's toast. But and I think it's really just them respecting Belichick's defensive mind and them thinking that he might have a game plan for the Eagles. And quite honestly, I mean, I get it, but I feel very confident. I think that the Eagles are going to win again. This is one of those ones I see a double-digit victory in the 10 to 14 point range, and I really don't think that they're going to have much of a problem with them. Maybe the first couple drives is Hurts because he hasn't played in the preseason, is a little rusty, but I think that we're going to be able to run, ground, and pound them. And I think week one we're just going to play it short until they finally open up and let us get a shot downfield to Brown or Devonta Smith. I think that this game is going to be pretty comfortable win beginning to end for the Eagles.
Yeah, I really like Devonta Smith this week. I've been trying to sneak him in my DFS lineups as much as possible because, Belichick always targets that number one receiver, and his main goal is to always shut them down. So I think he does that with A.J. Brown, and so I'm expecting Devonta Smith to eat underneath this week. Next up, to be honest, I'm just going to get this out of the way. The 1 o'clock slate kind of sucks compared to the 4 o'clock slate. Like, all these games are games where I want to be sitting in my couch. I'm going to be at the bar for the 1 o'clock games, but I want to be sitting at my couch and actually watching and taking these games in for the 4 o'clocks. And one of them being the Rams at the Seahawks. This is a game where I'm not that high on Seattle. I think I'm really low compared to the consensus on Seattle, and mainly that's just because Geno Smith has never really done anything in the NFL other than last year, and I've been a little bit of a believer in the Rams. Even without Cooper Kupp, I think it's a little bit disrespectful to give the Rams a 2-1 underdog scenario. I mean, that's the thing. Like, that's why I still don't understand that Patriots-Eagles line, because this is an interdivisional matchup, and the teams are pretty similar in terms of talent as opposed to the Patriots-Eagles game, and they're much bigger of an underdog. I'm going with the Rams, and the main factor in that is going to be Cam Akers. I see him honestly having like 130, 150 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. I think that if you're going to pick the Rams any week of the season, it's week 1 when they're fully healthy.
So just to touch on that, they're not fully healthy. Well, you and I see complete opposite on this one. I was with you when I thought that Cooper Kupp might be back to as healthy as he's going to get, and then he re-aggravated his hamstring. I think that while the Seahawks defense isn't one that's got crazy amount of talent on there, they're about average talent. They're always well coached. They always know their assignments. So you're going to put in Seattle this Rams offense without their best weapon. Their offensive line is going to be as healthy as it's going to be all year, which is great for the Rams, but I still don't think it's a good offensive line. I think Stafford is going to, he's going to drop back, and his number one option is Tyler Higbee and Van Jefferson. Yeah, that's going to be a problem. I think if Cam Akers does get started, and where you see where he's having a great game, they're going to adjust. They're going to make sure that they shut down the run game, or they're going to be like, you know what? You can run for 10 yards or for 5 yards, 6 yards a carry. We're already up by 14 points. So I just don't think that this game is going to be I think it'll be close until the end, but this is another one where I see kind of a 10-point win for the Seahawks. The defense isn't good except for Aaron Donald and Cooper Kupp, which I see is probably 60% of their offense is gone. I think it's going to be a pretty rough game for them. I think Seattle's going to take away with the dub.
Yeah, so this is basically the inverse of our Bucs-Vikings pick there. Up next, I'm sure we disagree in this one as well. It is the Green Bay Packers at the Chicago Bears. I'm just going to roll with Justin Fields in this one. This is a coin flip matchup, though. I wouldn't ever argue that the Packers couldn't win this game. This is another game similar to Titans-Saints, where I think it's going to be very close. This is a game not to bet. This is a game that I don't really want many fantasy pieces in. This is a game that I'm not going to touch with any of my money. I might just watch it, and I think that this is a good game, though, to see where both teams are. Is A.J. Dillon the true one as opposed to Aaron Jones now? Is Justin Fields now going to improve in the passing game with now the addition of DJ Moore and Claypool? Is Jordan Love really good? There's just so many X factors in this game, which is why making a prediction on it is really hard. So I'm just going to side with the home team.
Yeah, so you're not going to be opposed to what I have to say. I agree, and to me, Obviously, I like the Packers. I think they're going to end up winning this division, but I had the Bears making the playoff as a wild card. To me, I'm just going to give the edge to the home team. I think that both of these teams are going to be good this year, going to be competitive. I think that the Packers are a slightly better team, obviously, is why I have them winning the division. But I think week one, divisional battle, kind of everybody's doing new things. I think it's going to actually be one of those games that, like, people, obviously, it's a divisional game, so people will want to tune in because it's a divisional matchup. But I think this game's going to be really, really good. I think it's going to come down to, like, whoever has the ball last type situation. Can they score? Can they not? I think it's going to be a field goal game, quite honestly, and I'm just going to give the edge to the Bears since they're at home this time.
I agree with you. It's definitely going to be a field goal game. What's the line? Oh yeah, Vegas has no idea. It's a +1, -1 line. Those are just ones where you just take the money line at that point. Up next, we have the Raiders at the Broncos, and this is a game where I felt really confident picking the Broncos at first. But the more I think about it, I wouldn't be shocked if the Raiders win, especially with Jimmy Garoppolo, whose biggest question every year is his health. Aiden O'Connell also had a fantastic preseason. So if they just start, riding the hot hand in this game, I could see them actually surprising people. Devontae Adams will probably do great in this game. But I'm still going to end up picking the Broncos just because I'm a big Russell Wilson fan. I think that Sean Payton's going to have them bounce back. And if Javonte Williams can play, that's going to be a big X factor against the Raiders defense, which has an elite pass rush, but not necessarily the best run D. This is a game that I think is going to be in the trenches, though. And as far as +4 for the Raiders, I kind of like it as far as the spread goes, but I'm personally not going to touch it. This is another game very similar to the Titans Saints. I think this one's actually more similar to the Titans Saints than the Packers Bears, where that one's more of a coin flip. This is one where one team should win, but at the end of the day, if you told me that Russell Wilson was sacked by Max Crosby 3 times and Devontae Adams went off, I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah, so Raiders, again, another team that I think are going to be horrible this year. I like the Broncos. I don't think it's going to be particularly close. There is a world where Max Crosby and Chandler Jones play at their, they both have their best game and they end up winning the game. But I just think better roster, better quarterback, better coach. I just don't see a world where they win. Week one, I think Sean Payton is going to have a great game plan. And I honestly think this is going to be one of those wins. I think they'll win by 10, but it'll be a comfortable 10. They'll be up by 17, and then the Raiders score a last-second touchdown to make it 10. I don't see this game being particularly close.
Where are the Broncos offense scoring 17 points? They couldn't score 1 last year.
The Raiders have 2 players on defense. They have Max Crosby. They have 2 good players on their entire defense. And they're at the most important position, which is great. But if you can devise a game plan, which I think Sean Payton will, to where Wilson's not dropping back for 10. He's not sitting back waiting for route development. I think it's going to be get the ball out quick, let your guys make plays, get them outside, rolling outside of the pocket, stuff like that. I just think the Raiders defense is hot trash, and I think that Devontae Adams is going to make plays for sure, but Surtain is one of the cornerbacks that can actually be competitive with a true number 1 receiver. So if you have a lockdown corner going against with Devontae, and I'm not a big Garoppolo guy. I think that a lot of the reason he was so good is because of the weapons he had with the Niners and the system that he was in. And again, like I said, I just think that the coaching is going to be a masterclass by Peyton. He wants to look good this game. He's been out of the coaching realm. And he wants to show everybody, listen, I was gone, but I'm as good as ever. And I think that he's going to – I really do think they're going to railroad him all game long.
And up next, the game that I know you're really looking forward to, we got the Miami Dolphins at the Chargers. This is a game where I expect an absolute shootout, as does Vegas. It is the second highest total overall other than the Thursday night game, and I expect that to change. So if you want to get on it right now, hop on the over. It's right now over under 51. That's an over for me. I think there's 60 points scored in this game. I don't see why they would have less points on the board for this game than the Lions Chiefs, other than the fact that the Lions Chiefs is tomorrow. I love this game from a fantasy perspective. I would pick up every player that's in this game, even guys that you wouldn't usually start, like a Joshua Palmer, like a Raheem Mostert, just anyone. I want a piece of this game. But at the end of the day, I'm going to go with the team that I think has the more consistent defense, even though I think that the Chargers have the more talented defense by far. I think that the Dolphins are just going to get this one done. I can't trust Justin Herbert after what he did in the playoffs last year. I do think the Chargers will become one of the best teams in the league this year. I just don't see it happening to a team that has just so many weapons and healthy Tua. At least week one, if they matched up in the playoffs, I'm taking the Chargers. But week one, give me Tua and the Dolphins.
Yeah, so this is one of the games that I'm most excited for. It's definitely in that upper echelon of games. I think the NFL did great week one match schedule making, quite honestly. Like you said, this is just going to be so fun. It's going to be a shootout. I do think that the Chargers are going to pull away with it. I think they have the better defense, and I'm a little worried about the Dolphins' offensive line, especially, the Chargers, they only play one half fully healthy every year. So the Dolphins are going to get to see the brunt of that. No, I think that this is going to be a shootout, but I think that the Chargers are going to win. I just think that they have a better overall roster. They have the better quarterback. They have similar weapons when you take into account every position, not just, obviously Hill and Waddle is the best receiving duo in the league, but Chargers have great receivers. They have a great running back. You know what I mean? I think it's going to be a really, really fun game, and everybody's going to want to watch it. It's going to be one of those games where, you're switching from this game to red zone, and you're like, why'd I switch it? There's a 40-yard touchdown. You're not going to want to miss anything. So I'm really, really excited for the game, and I think that the Chargers end up winning by a touchdown.
All right, and I'm like I said, that's a coin flip of a game too. I wouldn't be shocked if the Chargers won. That's not like I knew we were going to differ on that game. And
I
at
had
the
a
end of
feeling
the
as well.
day, yeah, I mean
Dolphins guy.
we're both on the over though, and so I think you should take that. Now we're at the Sunday night football game. By the way, if you haven't seen our first touchdown video for the Thursday night game, we're actually going to be doing first touchdown videos for this game as well as the Monday night game. Cowboys at Giants. The fact that it's at the Giants and Vegas still isn't keeping the line closer just shows you how confident they are in the Cowboys in this matchup. You would think at home, knowing that the Giants made the playoffs, made the same round of the playoffs as the Cowboys, that this would be more of like a similar line to the Bengals-Browns game. However, the line isn't. It's the Cowboys favored by 3.5 right now. I think Dallas gets it done. I think it's more likely that Dak Prescott bounces back to the 5 good years that he had as opposed to the 1 bad year he had than Daniel Jones is the same good year from last year as opposed to 3 horrific years at the beginning. I've been saying this. I'm getting higher and higher on Mozzie Smith, even though I don't think his individual statistics will reflect it. I think that just his pressure and getting underneath the offensive line is just going to open up gaps for Parsons and for DeMarcus Lawrence. I expect Daniel Jones to be on his back a lot in this one, despite how good the Giants' offensive line is. I'm really just excited to see what this new look of offense looks like. As a Cowboys fan, I'm personally not too pleased with having Tony Pollard be our running back 1. Hopefully that changes at some point throughout the season. Kareem Hunt's still available. Maybe we get Jonathan Taylor. We'll see. I could see this being a game where if we end up losing, we push for one of those guys. But yeah, I'm still going to roll with the Cowboys here. Dak Prescott is 10-1 against the Giants. So why would we think that the Giants are going to pick up that 2 right now?
Yeah, so this is one of those games I see, while I think that the disparity between the talent levels is not as close as that Packers-Bears game we were talking about, I see this game playing basically exactly the same. I'm going to take the Cowboys by a field goal, but this is a game that if you were thinking about betting, I personally wouldn't touch whatsoever. The Giants are one of those teams where Dayball can win you a game. You know what I mean? He's such a good offensive coordinator. Saquon and Waller are both going to be healthy. And I personally think that if those two can stay on the field, it's going to be an offense that even against better defenses, you'll be a little bit more surprised. a little surprised on how they produce. I think that they'll be able to at least move the ball. The question is, will they be able to punch it in? And I think that's what I'm going to give the edge to the Cowboys. I mean, that defense is fantastic. And even though the Giants are going to be at home field, I still think that they're going to be able to edge them out. I'd say they win by a field goal. But if I had to bet anything on this game, I would take the Giants spread because, like I said, depending on the book, 3.5, you're getting the hook, you win. If it's a 3, you get a push. But purpose of winning the game, I'm going to go with the Cowboys.
All right, and that brings us to the last game of the week. I'm assuming we're split on this one as well. I am taking the Buffalo Bills against the New York Jets. The Jets are at home, but it's still New York, so I'm sure a lot of Buffalo fans will travel that extra 2 hours to make it to the game. The Bills are a team that I think is being really slept on. Aaron Rodgers, all the pressure in the world is going to be on him in this matchup. I think the expectations are just going to be too high at first, even though I think that the Jets end up winning that later matchup down in Buffalo. I don't see Rodgers living up to the hype on week 1. I expect this to be a very sloppy performance from the Jets. I love the Bills money line. I love them to cover. I think they win this game by 10, maybe more points. It's an early game for a new team with a new quarterback with so many moving pieces. How is this wide receiver core that has about 15 players in it? How is that going to operate? Who's running what routes? Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook is an experiment. Their defense is very solid, and I think it'll keep them in the first half of the game. But this is just another day at the office for Josh Allen and the Bills, and I think that they get this one done. This Bills team, when healthy, is fierce. Let's not forget that they have Von Miller and Leonard Floyd also out there on the defense, which they didn't have last year. They had Miller toward the end, but he was a little bit injured. And then you pair him with his Super Bowl companion in Floyd. I don't expect – and I think the pressure of a Monday Night Football game where Aaron Rodgers knows that the entire state of New York is expecting him to be the answer for this team, I just think mentally it's going to be too much for him, and he's going to collapse, and the Bills win this one easily.
Yeah, so first things first, this is my game of the week. I'm so excited for this game. You kind of see it as, not a blowout, but a significant win for the Bills. I think that not only is this game going to be tight all the way through, I think that the Jets are going to win. I think that the Jets team overall, I love them this year. I like the Bills. I had both of them in the playoffs, but I had the Jets winning the division. It's going to be at home, like you said. Buffalo Bills fans, they travel extremely well. It's one of the games that they'll be closer to for an away game. So I don't think that the Jets' home field advantage is going to be crazy significant by any means. But I think that Rodgers is going to want to show out week 1, and not only is he going to want to, I think he will. Miller is on the PUP. He's going to – or either the PUP or he's on the IR, I think. So either way, he's out for this game. And that's significant to me. I like the Bills' defensive line, but I think Von Miller is a big piece of that, obviously. He was great last year while he was playing. I think Rodgers is going to show up to the moment. I think he's I've said this multiple times since we've been doing this. I think that this is the first time that he's genuinely excited to play football in a few years. And I do think that matters when it comes to a guy like Rodgers. Obviously, last year he wasn't great, but he was still a very he showed the flashes, obviously, because he's Aaron Rodgers. I think he's going to be dialed in. I think that they're going to win. I'm going to say they win by a touchdown. I think it's going to, like I said, it's going to be an extremely close game. I'm going to say 31-24 Jets. I can't wait. I think that this is going to be, well, it's my game of the week. So that says it for you. I think it's going to be the best game of the week.
And it's good that we're closing out our game segment with a big disagreement, because it is a huge disagreement, because I think everyone's thinking what you think. I think everyone's thinking this is going to be a hell of a game, and Monday Night Football for some reason always lets you down no matter how good the matchup is. And I think that that's part of it too, is just Monday Night Football always freaking sucks. So I could see getting to the bar, because BOGO Margaritas on Mondays at the place near me. So I'm excited for that. But I'm going to be getting there, get my margaritas, be excited for a hell of a game. Like you said, maybe a 30-20 score where it's like high scoring and great. And then it's just like just a shit game and the Bills end up winning at the end. Like, I don't know, but that's how I see it going. And now we're getting to our fantasy starts of the week. Shocked we already went an hour getting into the fantasy starts of the week, but these are players who you may see again. We're going to be doing a DFS video, so make sure to subscribe and check out that video. My quarterback start of the week is Lamar Jackson. Like we mentioned earlier, we both think that the Ravens are going to win comfortably, and if they do so, they're going to need good play from their quarterback. Even if it's not through the air, I could see Lamar just running all over this team. Lamar Jackson, week one, always comes out perfectly healthy. You're putting an athletic specimen at full health against a horrific defense. That just sounds like some ankles are getting broken, and it's not going to be Lamar's. I could see Lamar getting a rushing touchdown as well as multiple passing touchdowns. So I like him. And for the FanDuel value on him, it's not that bad. He is the third most expensive quarterback this week, but I think it's worth it.
Yeah, my start of the week, again, this is another guy who's kind of high profile, but I think he's going to have a performance to where it's worth it. It's Justin Herbert. I said previously when we did the breakdown of this game, I think it's going to be a shootout. I think Herbert's going to ball out. I quite honestly see him being high 300s, low 400s in passing yards. And I think he's going to have 3 or 4 passing touchdowns. It all just kind of depends on how many go rushing to Eckler. But like I said, I think he's going to ball out. I think that he's going to have first game with Kellen Moore. I'm very, very excited to see those two together. I've talked time and time again about how good I think the Chargers are going to be this year. Everybody's fully healthy. I could see them dropping a 30 or a 40 bomb on them if everything goes as planned. And I think that he's going to be a top 3 quarterback this week at least.
Yeah, I like Herbert as well. I would honestly take him. I have him in actually one of my other lineups, not the one that we're doing because I'm figuring you're going to put him in that one, but I do have him as well. My wide receiver start of the week, I mentioned it earlier with the Jaguars facing the 31st ranked defense against receivers, a horrible secondary there in Indianapolis. It's only going to get worse now that Gilmore's on the Cowboys. And I love Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley is a player that has really grown on me. The pendulum has swung from me hating him and thinking that he's just a horrible fantasy pick to now where I think that he's like the pick of the year. I mean, you saw him in preseason last week. He had 3 receptions. I have him in every league now. I've been trying my hardest. The only league that I won't get him in is Dynasty because we have a guy who literally won't respond to my trades because he hates me. But
we all hate you.
But no, Calvin Ridley, 3 receptions for 50 yards in his preseason game last week. The rust really doesn't appear to be there. I love Lawrence. I'm all over him this week, especially against the Colts. I just see a lot of big plays happening in this game, and Calvin Ridley's a discount right now. He's at like 6,900 on FanDuel. And as far as wide receiver ones go, that's about as low as you'll see it.
And for my wide receiver start of the week, I'm going to go with the Thursday night player in Sky Moore. We actually put these in before the Travis Kelce news, but to me, this makes it more apparent. I think that he's going to have right around 10 targets, quite honestly. I think he'll be the target leader for the team. I think he's going to have either right around 100 yards or he's going to breach the 100-yard mark. And I just think that this is going to be a shootout. He's going to get plenty of targets. And, I've said it many times, I don't think the Lions defense is anything special. So with Mahomes having a full Superman performance with, potentially no Kelce and certainly no Chris Jones on defense, I think this guy Moore is going to have a big day.
I love it. I'm going to be starting him in my flex in many leagues this week. I ended up drafting him in our league that we're together, just to spite you. But now I'm going to have to start him week one, considering he's your start of the week. The final position of the week is tight end. And I'm going to go with Kyle Pitts. I already talked about how much I think the Falcons are going to destroy the Panthers this week. And Kyle Pitts, I think this week gets 2 touchdowns. I'm calling it right now. All the hype is around Bijan Robinson and Drake London. And actually, it was so weird. I got a report like 2 days ago that was saying that the Falcons are not excited about Pitts. And I'm not going to take that with any seriousness. I'm going to think that that's a smokescreen, and Kyle Pitts is going to be pissed and come out hot. I expect a Florida Gator-like performance from Kyle Pitts this week. Even if he only gets 2 receptions, but those 2 receptions are touchdowns, I like that, even though he's a big yards guy as well. For the price at $6,000, I think that's crazy. You're getting him at $3,000 less than you'd be getting a Mark Andrews, and he probably will outproduce him this week. I love Kyle Pitts this week.
And my tight end start of the week, I'm going to go with Tyler Higbee. Again, this is one that I had in before the Kupp aggravation. I just think he's going to get peppered with targets. Even if Kupp plays, which, as we've said, is unlikely, he's going to be the number 2 option. With Kupp out, he's going to be the number 1. I think that he could have 14 targets this week. And for a tight end to get 14 targets, basically an auto start. So, yeah, I just think that they're going to have to rely on him, even if they really didn't want to rely on him quite as much as they're going to have to. And I think that he's going to, be productive, 50 to 60 yards and a touchdown on like 8 catches, something like that.
And he's even cheaper too. So he's a fantastic value in DFS lineups. I mean, he's $5,200 right now. That is a steal. Even $800 less than Pitts, and a great weekly pickup as well, because you don't know what's the update with Cooper Kupp. Whereas Pitts isn't a guy that you can really pick up off your waivers. Higbee might actually be there. So I love that. And I think for the fantasy community out there, it's a really good point of advice that you're bringing up there, because he could be a consistent starter in your lineup for about 4 weeks until Cooper Kupp is back. Our final segment, we're actually going to be running our own suicide pool against each other here, see who makes it longer. I'm going to assume it's you, because my pick is really, really risky right now. So if you don't know how suicide pools work, you pick one team each week, and then you can't ever use that team again. So right now, I'm just trying to think of this week 1 strategy. I could use the Ravens. I could use a team that's pretty much guaranteed to win, but I'm going to save those big name teams for later in the season. And I'm actually going to take the Atlanta Falcons week 1. I'm terrified to do this, but that is my pick of the week, because I don't see a world where I pick them any other time this year with this much confidence, but I am going to pick the Falcons against the Panthers.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm just going to go play it safe. It's just me and you and our pride with the audience here. I'm going to try and go for the perfect season. I'm going to go with the Philadelphia Eagles. Like I said, I think they're going to win pretty comfortably. I really don't have much more to say. I think that the Patriots are not going to be good this year, and I think that they're going to be competitive, but in games where they're just outclassed, they're not going to be able to win. And I think we'll see that this Sunday.
Yeah, I love the Birds. I would pick them as well, but you already got to it. And so next week, you guys can all harass me in the comment section after the Falcons lose, because they're probably going to lose, especially now that they're my suicide pick. But either way, it's been a hell of a podcast. Love doing it. Week 1, we'll be back with the same sort of format week 2, and this is our first run through it, so bear with us if it was a little bit difficult or a little bit blotchy here and there, but we ended up, just figuring out some kinks. And as we go throughout the season, the podcast is only going to improve and improve and improve. And as far as videos go, we have a best bets video out right now, first touchdown scorer out right now, and the DFS lineup coming out tomorrow. So can't wait to see you guys there.